But look, let's get into the game yesterday. Spurs did draw with Manchester United 2-2 at Old Trafford. It was a weird game of football yesterday. Obviously, Spurs coming into it with a host of problems. Kulusevski out ill. A lot of players that were on the pitch were struggling with illness and failed to train during the week. I think Skip was one of them. I can't remember who else was, but there were a few that were struggling with illness. There was kind of a spurt of illness at Hotspur Way during the week, which made this game even harder. But I thought there was so much effort that was put into that game yesterday from everyone, to be honest. And I commended the effort. I just felt like our creativity wasn't the best. We weren't, clinical in front of goal, and we didn't create the best chances. But I did think we controlled the game for the majority of it against a very poor Manchester United side. But Man United came out the blocks really fast, didn't they? Scored within 3 minutes. Defensive lapses for both of those goals that we conceded in the first half. Porro caught a little bit high up the pitch. Romero not putting in the challenge in the first few minutes, and we go 1-0 down really early. It was a bit of a kick in the teeth, wasn't it?
Yeah, and especially you wanted a fast start, especially with Romero, as you said, Romero, Van de Ven back in the side. You wanted them to kind of ease into the game. You didn't want to have us under pressure so early on. It was a very big game if we could go get the win, and it puts us in a really great position. So, especially all the problems we were having, to go 1-0 down so early was the last thing we needed. But to be fair to the lads, they responded really, really well. I thought they responded to going down really well, but I think United, to be fair to them, in that opening, I would say in the opening, half an hour or so, they were exploiting those wide areas really, really ruthlessly. Rashford, they just kept playing Rashford in every time because they know what Porro is going to do. He's going to cut inside. He's going to play that inverted fullback role, and they were ready for that. And every time they hit a quick every time we lost the ball, they hit a quick transition into Rashford, and it put us in trouble. And they definitely made us pay, but we did respond to it well, and you got to give Spurs credit, because it was whatever you want to say about Man United at home. I know they've had some bad results. They lost 3-0 to Bournemouth, but they beat Villa recently. They're not easy to play against.
2-0 down as well. Yeah.
They're not easy to play against. So as well, how Man United like to play. They like to play on the transition, on the counter. So going 1-0 up, you're thinking, they're just going to sit back, and is it going to be really, really difficult for us now to break them down? But we did respond well, and we didn't make it easy for them at all.
Yeah, and we still missing so many players, and so many players were heavily missed yesterday. Kulusevski was heavily missed. Maddison was heavily missed. Heung-min Son was heavily missed. Pape Sarr, whenever he's not in that midfield, it just doesn't seem the same, to be honest. And we haven't seemed to replicate Ange ball properly without Sarr in the midfield, in my opinion. But where we looked really dangerous yesterday with set pieces from the corners, which showed from the first goal, obviously, with RICHARLISON getting on the end of Pedro Porro's corner. But every single corner that we put in yesterday, Pedro Porro delivered to perfection, to be honest. I thought he was so dangerous yesterday, Pedro Porro. Look, in the first half an hour, defensively, maybe a little bit all over the place, or, found wanting a little bit. But on the ball, Pedro Porro yesterday was just insane. He really was. Everything that we were doing good going forward, he was central to.
Well, it's no surprise to me, because you look at the team, and as you said it, no Maddison, no Lo Celso, no Kulusevski, no Son. That's literally every ounce of creativity we have in the 25-man squad, literally stripped of that team. If you literally point our most creative players, those are our top four, in the team. So if you strip that away, who's left? And it is Porro. He's the only one left who is creative, who can do an inch-perfect pass from a deep position, who can lay it on a plate for a striker. And it's no surprise to me that he was the one we looked to create things yesterday. It's no surprise as well that where we were getting most joy was from set pieces, because when we came up in open play against set defences, a set defence from Man United, it was very difficult for us to pick that lock unless we were playing it very quickly and we were able to find that space and in a quick transition. Man United were keeping us at bay quite effectively, but where we did have that edge was from set pieces, because you had Porro whooping him with that delivery that he has, and I thought it was exceptional. Obviously, we got the goal from it. There was one as well where he played it to the back post to Werner, and that nearly went in. It was deflected over Onana's head. there was one cleared off the line. I think Dalot cleared one off the line as well. And then obviously we got the goal. And that was good reward, I thought, for a really good response. And Porro was absolutely central to that.
Yeah, I mean, in the first half, I did feel at half time, I was feeling we weren't really at the races as much as we have been so far this season. I felt like we were way too easy to... United found it too easy to attack against us, I felt. And our defence, Van der Ven looked a bit rusty. Romero looked a bit rusty right at the beginning of the game. Both of them did grow into the game, to be honest. But defensively, we weren't really at it in that first half. And as much as we controlled possession for the most part and probably, had more shots on goal and more shots on target, I just felt like I wanted more in that second half. Højbjerg, in my opinion, on the ball as well was poor. He kept giving the ball away consistently time and time again, although he was good off the ball, to be honest, and he was putting himself about. But second half, it did change because Man United had nothing in that second half, apart from that chance right at the end of the game. I thought Spurs controlled it so well in the second half with Bentancur at the thick of things in the middle of the park. Bentancur, by the way, he got Van der Ven out of trouble a couple of times and obviously got that goal right at the start of the second half. I thought he was absolutely excellent, Bentancur, yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he was better in the second half, but I thought even in the first half he was strutting himself about. And to think this guy came back a month early from a serious injury, just after having another serious injury, and he's played 90 minutes yesterday, and he's really looking back to his best. I thought when he first came back, he looked a bit rusty against Bournemouth, I think it was. But since then, I think he's really looking back to his best. I'm so happy for him. And I thought yesterday, he was the one giving us that bit of quality in midfield. Without him, we would have really struggled to control that centre. I think we did end up controlling the centre because of him. And I thought he played in that bit of a kind of role, which we haven't really seen from him in a Spurs shirt, because usually he's either with Basuma or usually he's in the number 6 because Basuma's out. But yesterday was the first time we saw him in a bit more of an attacking position. I thought he played brilliant. I thought he did it brilliantly. Obviously got his goal, first goal of the season for him as well. Really well taken goal, the way he strode into the box and fired it into the net. And I thought when we're getting to the final third, he was the one, if anyone was looking like he had a bit of quality in there, it was Bentancur, and I thought he was exceptional. I thought it was a really top performance from him.
And that showed with the goal that we scored. Skippy plays a nice ball out to Timo Werner. Timo Werner checks inside and plays a really good ball to Bentancur. And Bentancur just kind of, I don't know how, he just strode past Johnny Evans, didn't want to put a challenge in or anything. Really bad defending from him, but what a finish from Bentancur. And it levels it up 2-2 in the opening minutes of the second half. And you're thinking, all right, we've got that goal, let's go on and win this game. But it just didn't happen, did it?
No. After the goal, I was expecting us to... We had a bit of momentum, and I think we were really on top for the next 15 minutes or so, and it looked like we were going to make that momentum pay because we were opening them up not opening them up, but we were really putting a lot of pressure on them without really forcing any chances. I would say once he made that change brought in McTominay, it did help stabilise the game for Man United. I wouldn't say they were the better team or anything after that, but I would say they had a bit more control of the game. They weren't just under siege like they were for the previous 15 minutes. And obviously McTominay had a couple of chances in there. Shot fired on the edge of the box, went wide, and I had that late header. So I think that definitely did help them, give them a bit of legs. And that was a big problem because for us, we were on top for that next bit. We didn't take advantage of it. And to keep up that energy, what you need is energy. And that's what we didn't have coming off the bench.
You could see us tiring.
We had tiring, and it felt like Ange didn't really want to use the bench, it felt like. And obviously he brought Hill on. Was that the only sub he made?
No, he brought Dragusin on.
Dragusin on for 5 minutes? So he brought them on, but obviously Dragusin isn't going to win you the game. Moved to a back three at that point. And Hill... Obviously, we know he's not gonna, come on and he can do and run at people, but wasn't ever gonna be a match winner. So I think it's just a case of the depleted squad. It's not where you get the problems with a depleted squad. Obviously, you get it from the lack of creativity, but also you get it from the lack of options off the bench. And I think that was the big killer for us not getting a win yesterday.
Yeah, that was evident yesterday. The lack of options on the bench. I mean, I highlighted it in the WhatsApp group beforehand. What are we going to do with this bench? Because it's just basically mainly kids. essentially, and he didn't want to use them. And when you have little to next to no creativity in the midfield with Skip and Højbjerg and Bentancur, albeit I do think Skip had a fairly good game yesterday, to be honest. I saw some people laying into Skip's performance yesterday, but I thought he played well, a few creative passes, driving forward at times. I didn't really have a problem with Skip's performance yesterday, but he is what he is, right? He's not going to be the creative hub of the team as much as he tries. And I think he performed to the best of his abilities yesterday, Ollie Skip. But you're looking at the two wings as well. Werner was getting himself in some good positions, but his finishing was Timo Werner-esque. And Brennan Johnson on the other side was poor, really poor performance from him. I was getting so frustrated with Brennan Johnson because he was getting the ball, didn't want to take on his man, and when he was getting in those good positions, he couldn't put in a good cross for no love, no money. So when these kind of things are going against you and you've got no options on the bench to change it, then what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly. He was hamstrung. And yeah, the wingers definitely could have done, they definitely could have done more. I think RICHARLISON was the only one in that front three doing his job properly. I think Werner, for a first start, and I think I saw some good things, and I thought definitely he was getting good positions, and that was really promising. And he was getting to the byline a few times. Obviously, he got an assist as well on his, which was a good pass, and it was he set up Bentancur well. So fair play to him. But yeah, Johnson very much frustrating. I think his final ball was atrocious, pretty much throughout the whole. Every time he was either overhitting it or went straight to Onana. Wasn't able to even just make the defenders work. Even if the cross is going to be blocked away from the defender, make the defender do the work. Don't do it for them, which I felt like he did. Every time it was overhit, near no one. Who knows? You put it across the face of the goal in a dangerous area, maybe you forced an own goal or something, but it wasn't. You couldn't even do that. It was just horrific final ball, which was really upsetting because he's coming in for a lot of criticism. You got to understand he's still quite a raw player. He's still young, and it's very early in his Spurs career, so I think people need to cut him some slack. But you also need to admit he had a bad game, and I am willing to admit that. But people getting on him like he's a waste of money. Why do we buy him? All this kind of stuff. Like, needs to chill out with that. I think. We how many times we've seen Spurs players have difficult starts and then start to turn it around, and I'm sure you can do that. I
hate seeing like all this hate and negativity being thrown his way. Yeah, he had a poor game, and yeah, he's struggling a little bit at the moment, but you can see quality there. You can see clearly sheer pace. He's got a number of assists and a goal or two. How many goals has he scored? One or two? One goal.
5 assists, I think.
You know what I mean? That's not a terrible return. With someone, if you look on social media and what some fans are saying, you would have thought like he's the worst player in the world, the way people are talking. You know what I mean? Like, Anthony has got 0 goals and 0 goal contributions. Timo Werner has got more goal contributions than Anthony, and he's played 1 game. So I think you're right. I think people do need to cut Brennan Johnson some slack. I like Brennan, and I think he will come good eventually. We just need to keep persisting with him. Ange seems to really like him. So we just need to go in the way of the manager and back our boys. And that goes for Timo Werner as well, because I've seen a lot of negativity around him. So I think support the boys, because we're onto a really good thing right now.
But it's interesting. I was just reading some quotes from Werner. He did an interview with the Evening Standard yesterday. Dan Kilpatrick reported on it. And he said that it was interesting hearing him say, he said, playing in this team, now I've become older, I'm 27, I'm a bit more mature in my football IQ. I used to judge my performances and my performances only on goals, he said, and that used to really affect me. But now I'm really starting to understand the value of making deep runs, making space for my teammates, getting assists, and that's going to be my job in this team. That's how the manager sees me, and that's going to be my role. And it encouraged me because he's becoming more self-aware, and obviously he did get an assist yesterday, so clearly he can do it, and I'm sure he can be creative, but that's never been Werner's biggest asset. So that does worry me a bit, like if that's what we brought him in to do, because that's never been his strength. Has never been his chance created and assisting. Now maybe we can find something that maybe other managers haven't been able to unlock in him, and that might be it. But I'm just saying, if I was coming into this, just objectively looking at Werner as a player, throughout his career, his biggest strength has been his goal threat. wherever he's been. Like he's never been a guy. I think that at Chelsea he did get a few assists, but he's never been a guy who's like you look at and think this guy can create loads of chances and he's going to lay it on a plate for his teammates all the time, and that's what he's good at. So it'll be interesting to see what Ange is going to unlock in him. He said, look, I'm still going to try to score as many goals as possible. That's still part of my role, but my main role is now going to get an assist. So it is interesting for him to say, because you would have thought, I always thought anyway, his best position for me, I think he's always played his best football for me down the centre, where he's been running in behind and scoring. But maybe he's looking at it now in a different part of his career. He's looking at, playing in a different way.
Yeah, but since that first stint at Leipzig, it's gone all wrong for Timo Werner in every facet possible. Not good at Chelsea, to be honest, as much as the Chelsea fans were backing him right till the end. At Leipzig now, he played quite a bit of football last year, but this season he's seen 20 minutes or like half an hour of football in the whole season. So I think we got to trust in Ange to see the values that he does have and see where he best fits in the system. And I trust Ange to do that 100%. But because it's gone so wrong for Timo for so long, it's sometimes players need to reinvent themselves, and maybe that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and it was a promising debut. Look, don't get me wrong. I think no one can say he was unbelievable or it was incredible, but he was solid. Considering it was his first start, how many he's had? One training session, 2 training sessions, and he already looked a threat. He already was doing things. I can see that clearly he was getting up to speed with what Ange wants. So that was promising. It wasn't amazing, but it was promising.
Yeah, but I did get the feeling with some of the chances that Werner has had, if Sonny was in those positions, we'd be talking about 3 points today.
Yeah, and that's why Son's a world-class player.
Yeah. Another player who I want to talk about is Destiny Udogie. Yesterday, I thought he was absolute class. Didn't see Garnacho for the whole game, pretty much. He locked down Garnacho like I haven't seen anyone lock down Garnacho recently, because he's been in really good form for Man United. He's been a threat in every single game, and probably Man United's biggest threat this season, and definitely over the last month or so. So for Destiny to really lock down Garnacho like he did yesterday, not give him one sort of any sniff throughout the game, and be a threat defensively and be a threat offensively, I thought he was brilliant.
Yeah, it's mad how you look at Destiny, how much time he spent in Man United's half, and yet he literally had Garnacho on lockdown. Garnacho just couldn't get anything out of him, which was so impressive. He's just so strong, so quick. And I just love watching him bully wingers off the ball. Like, they just can't get any spare change out of him. And then as well, he has that confidence to be a threat in going the other way. And I thought he helped Timo on some occasions. He was obviously he's getting much better. He's always been good on the ball, but he's getting much better with his passing and everything like that. Even though he started at a good base during the season, I thought he had a phenomenal performance. I thought Garnacho will just be happy that game was over, I think.
Yeah. Look, you do get the feeling it's a bit of a missed opportunity yesterday with how poor maybe Man United were, especially in the second half, and how much possession we had. We didn't make the most out of the possession that we did have. So for me, after the game yesterday, I was a bit disappointed that we didn't take all 3 points, because as much as 2-2, maybe a draw in terms of chances created was probably a fair reflection on the game, I felt like we could have done a bit more in the game yesterday, and I was a bit disappointed that we didn't take the 3 points.
I think, look, Man United haven't been doing well this season. We've been playing really well. So I think we're going into, I don't think we were favourites going into it, but going into it, you would have expected, if we can play the way we have been, we can definitely win that game. And, how that game panned out, we were playing the better football. We were the ones on top and putting the moves together. Some of our build-up play, again, exceptional. Like you just marvel at it sometimes, the way we break opposition's press, especially when we're really getting into the flow of the game. And sometimes it takes us a while to settle, but once we do settle, we can be flying, and that's where we were yesterday. But for me, I just think the circumstances were the reason,
Yeah.
It was clear to see. I think it was clear to see what we were missing. And it was clear to see what could have won us the game. It was the creativity or options off the bench to change things up. I thought Brendan was getting tired, but there weren't many options to change him for. Werner probably lacking a bit of match practice, so he only lasted 65 minutes. He was just hamstrung with what he had to do. So under the circumstances, I think most other years we lose that game. Yeah, 100%. We don't get anything from it. So to come away with a 2-2 draw, considering the way we played, is a bit disappointing, but I think it's one that I think I can accept, and I think it's one that shows to me that we're still on the right track, and it definitely shows to me again the character of the team coming back from behind twice, and especially in this kind of game when you're lacking those players who are creative and going to open up the opposition. The last thing you want to do is give them the lead, and we did that twice, and yet we still came back. So that shows to me that whatever team we put out, whatever state we're in, we're always going to give the opposition a game. And that's what that showed me. And that's why I'm proud.
And you got to give credit to Ange and the players for never using excuses. Never using excuses of these injuries. It's always about what we have, what we're doing on the football pitch, playing the right way of football. And it's so easy. It would be so easy for Ange to use these excuses of why we're not winning these games because of injuries and all this kind of stuff. Where that's the reality, because if we don't have those injuries yesterday, we win the game. If we don't have those injuries of that run that we lost all those games, we go and win that game. We go and win the majority of those games, and we'd be sitting top of the league now. So it's actually frightening to think about how good this team can get when all our players are back together, if our players ever get back together. Yeah. Because I genuinely think that Spurs with a full strength team this season would be top of the league right now, and we'd be talking about title race.
Yeah, and I think that's the frustrating thing. With obviously we'll never know now, but I think it's just logical when you look at how we've performed with these players missing, and we've still played relatively good level of performance, and we've even in tough games like Man City away and yesterday, even in really difficult games, we've really gave a good account of ourselves and come away with something more often than not. So I think that goes to show that we can adapt. Yeah, if we had our strongest 11, we'll be flying 100%. And even if we just had one of, if we just had one of Lo Celso, Kulusevski, or Madison yesterday, I think we win. Just one of them. Yeah. I think we would have won.
Even just Son for Werner, we probably would have won, in my opinion. But you cast your mind back to the Nuno days, the Conte days, the Jose Mourinho days, One player out injured, they're starting to make excuses. And not Nuno, because he wasn't here for long enough, but definitely Conte or Mourinho, When we used to have big players out under them, they used to just throw in the towel, being like, oh, we can't do this. Play just completely goes out the window. Now half of our first choice 11 are out. No excuses, still trying to play the way that he wants to play and doing it to our high level and 100%. Sitting where we are right now. So I can't give enough credit to Ange Postecoglou, to be honest. He has completely changed the face of this football club. But there's one thing about that chance that we conceded right at the end with McTominay. We were fractions away to losing that game, to be honest. And it's a bit of a worrying sign because that's 2 games in a row now where that's happened. Burnley game, where we nearly conceded right at that end. That could have taken that to a replay. And now again against Manchester United, where we concede that chance right at the end, where we could have lost that game. So he needs to make sure that his team is focusing right until the end of games.
100%, something to think about. And that's exactly what Vicario said. He was talking to Session about, interestingly enough. He said that he lost concentration from that set piece right at the end, and it could have cost us. I haven't watched that chance back in detail. I haven't really looked at who was at fault. But obviously, we were playing a 3 at the back at that time. So how we have 3 centre backs here, McTominay gets a free header, is perplexing. But look, I'm just going to put it down to Van de Ven was a bit rusty. Oh, and he had cramp as well.
He was off by then, I think.
He went off. Romero first came back in as well. Ange admitting that Romero probably came back a couple of weeks too early, but he was just so desperate to help his team, he came back.
He didn't train once, apparently.
I think he said he was part of the training on the last. He had one day.
One training session.
Dragusin has had one training session with his teammates. Emerson obviously playing centre back. We know he's not great there. So I'm just going to put it down to that. I don't think it's anything endemic, but yeah, 100%. That's something Ange would definitely have to take note of and hopefully try to rectify. Yeah,
but I think during this period now with Sarr, Udogie, it's not Udogie, Sarr, Bissouma and Son out for the internationals, this is probably our hardest test out of the next 4 games. So I'm happy that one's out of the way.
Well, but City in the Cup is a pretty difficult test.
I'm talking about the league game, but yeah, City in the Cup as well, obviously. That goes without saying. But I'm thinking, if we can get to the end of this run of the AFCON and the Asia Cup, I know we've lost points and we're going to lose a bit of ground, but if we can make up that ground and be within touching distance of top of the league when all our players come back, I'm saying a title race is on. I'm saying that we can last the distance.
It depends how far away, because we could easily...
No, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Because if Liverpool... I don't know who Liverpool have. I think Bournemouth away, they have. So if they win that, that's 8 points.
Yeah.
And that's going to be very difficult to claw back. But let's say they drop points and, it's still 6 by the time... and then we can kind of keep pace with Liverpool by the time our players come back. 100%, because you got to remember, they've all got European football. And so the games are going to clock up for them, in the second half of the season. They're going to probably pick up more injuries as well. And they're going to have to rotate in Europe and in the Premier League. And we're not. Obviously, we might still be in the FA Cup, but that's like one game every, however long, one game a month or something, isn't it? The FA Cup or after this month. So 100%. I really think if we can keep our players fit, we get them back and we're still in the touching distance, who knows what we can achieve. And I think we've shown already, we've gone to 3 away games this season. Went to the Emirates, we were behind twice and came back. Man City, we were behind twice and came back. Man United, behind twice and came back. These are very difficult away games and difficult grounds that we don't always do well in. And yet, this is Ange Postecoglou's. We've got to remember, he's his first 6 months in charge of the club, right at the start of a project, and he's already got us with this mentality where we can go to these grounds and play with no fear, and even if things go against us, we still come back, and that's the most impressive thing. Yeah.
Would you like to see him utilize these academy players a bit more, or are you of the thinking that maybe if he's not using them, he must not be ready?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm not going to criticise him for not using players who are are really young players. You've got to be very careful with these players. You can't just chuck them in if you don't think they're ready. Albeit he did bring them on in the Burnley game, which was a big moment. 1-0 up, a few minutes to go, and that was a very high pressurised moment. So I hope they got good experiences there. But clearly, that game could have gone either way against Man United, and he felt like maybe if he chucked on one of the youth players, they wouldn't have been able to cope with that, and he must have felt that. So I would like to have seen Donnelly get a run out and see what he can do, but I can't exactly say when he has had a few minutes he's shown much, but what can you show in a few minutes? But it's tough to say. I would like it, obviously I would like it, but if Ange isn't using them, I'm not gonna criticise him for it.
There's got to be a reason for it. Just before we end off, there's a player that we haven't mentioned that definitely deserves a mention, and that is RICHARLISON. 6 goals in his last 7 games, I think it is, for Spurs.
6 and 6, someone said.
6 and 6. Either way, I think he's the most informed striker in the Premier League at the moment. The player that's had a lot of shit thrown his way over the past year or so. He is performing to a high level, and it's not just the goals he's scoring, it's the way he's impacting the games. I thought his link-up play was brilliant yesterday. The way he was dropping deep, providing quality, knitting the play together. I really think RICHARLISON, since he's come back from that surgery, is a completely different man.
It is 6 and 6, and the only game he hadn't scored is against Brighton when he had a hat-trick of offside goals or something, didn't he? Or 2 offside goals. Yeah. So even in those games, his finishing was looking quite sharp, even though he didn't end up scoring. So 100%, he's a man on form. I thought yesterday was probably his best performance of the lot.
Yeah.
Because obviously he got a really good header from the corner, but I thought actually his general play was super impressive, actually. Holding up the play exceptionally well, making it stick when it got to him, not just needlessly giving the ball away, which he was doing for the majority of his Tottenham career, actually bringing other players into play and opening up the space. And when the ball gets fired into him, he's actually a bit of a focal point now. He actually makes it stick, and he actually helps sustain attacks. Obviously, apart from his goal, I don't remember too much. He had that one other chance, didn't he, which was a pretty easy save for Onana. So the only downside is, could he have gotten into more goal-scoring positions? Could he have asked more questions of the United backline from a actually threatening to score point of view? Maybe. But I thought his general play was super good, really solid. And I think the goal is kind of what his performance deserved. And as you say, he's a completely new man since the surgery. He looks so much freer. He doesn't look uncomfortable on the pitch anymore. He looks like he belongs there. And all this criticism he's been getting, he shouldn't be a Premier League player, all this stuff. And now he sits here, 7 Premier League goals, 3 assists, just halfway through the season. He's scored more goals than any Arsenal player this season. So he deserves credit. He's probably going to get over 10 Premier League goals this season. He's finally showing why we did decide to spend all that money to get him from Everton.
Absolutely. I can't praise Richarlison enough. After the way he's come from last season and at the beginning stages of this season to where he is now, I mean, it's night and day. It is complete night and day. So big up to Rishi. 6 goals. What did you say? 6 goals in 6 games in the Premier League, because he didn't score against Burnley, did he? Or did he score against Burnley?
Sorry, yeah, Burnley. Yeah, so in all competitions,
it's 6 and 7 in all competitions. So look, big up to you, proving Antonio and Callum and Wilson wrong and all that. So that is our match review from the 2-2 draw yesterday at Old Trafford.